Hello and welcome to another episode of Masala History. My name is Siva. I try to bring interesting histories from across the world, back them up with research, and present them for easy consumption. Thanks for all the support and all the feedback. Please keep them coming. As we continue to stay locked down and travels have become nothing but nostalgic throwbacks on Instagram, in this episode, I will walk you through a one-way cross-continent train trip that someone took 100 years back to change the course of history forever. On popular request, I am reproducing part of a story that I had written up in early 2019 on my Facebook page. And those of you who listened or watched my podcast on the original father of photoshopping, I hope you'll remember my reference to this historic journey that happened in 1917. History is always filled with remarkable journeys that change the course of the world. Whether it is the Hijra of Prophet Muhammad from Mecca to Medina, or Netaji Subash Bose's escape from Calcutta to Berlin, or Mao Zedong's long march across China, they have all been critical and timely and world-changing. In 1917, there was one very significant homecoming trip. This is the train journey of Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov, or better known as Lenin, his wife Nadezhda Krupskaya, and 30 of his followers from Zurich to Petrograd, the capital of the Russian Empire at that point in time. A little background before we board the train. On 15th March 1917, Nikolai Romanov II, the Tsar of Russia, abdicated his throne in favor of his brother, who also refused to take the throne, knowing very well what fate awaited to anyone who would be willing to sign up. This brought to end the 400-year-old Romanov dynasty in Russia. It was the second European empire of the old order to come crashing down in less than 2 years. Civil war was imminent, and a bunch of revolutionaries under the leadership of Professor Alexander Kerensky formed what was called as a provincial government. Now, this was the time when World War I, or the Great War as it was known then, was in full sway in Europe. Germany and its friends, Austria-Hungary, Turkey, and Bulgaria, were at war with the United Kingdom, France, Russia, Italy, and Japan. Germany was desperate to get Russia out of the war. So when the Tsar abdicated, the German military hoped that that would be enough to deter Russia from the war. But to their dismay, Professor Kerensky-led provincial government was still pro-war. The German intelligence and war ministry henceforth decided that they need to cast a different die to their favor. The plan was to somehow create civil unrest in Russia by sending a firebrand revolutionary and hopefully install someone who will withdraw Russia from the war. And this is where the hero of our today's story, Lenin, fits in. Lenin was living in exile in Zurich when the Tsar abdicated. He instantly knew that his time had come to return and declare a war on the dictatorship of the proletariat. There was a severe debate on the mode and the path to be chosen to go back to Russia because all of them involved a substantial risk and probability of arrest and execution. Now, the German intelligence decided that they would fund Lenin's travel secretly back to Petrograd with the understanding that it will ignite more chaos and eventually pull Russia out of the war. A crazy, scary plan was hatched. Lenin and his followers will be put on a sealed carriage attached to a train that will go from Zurich all across Germany. From the Baltic Sea border, they will enter neutral country of Sweden, cross the frozen river and enter into Russia via Finland. Of course, the whole journey was risky throughout. They could either be shot in Germany on account of being Russians, the enemy country, or they could be shot in Finland and Russia as they could be considered as German spies. But risks have to be taken if revolutions have to be ignited and history has to be made. Lenin and his convicts entered the sealed carriage on Easter Sunday, April 9, 1917. It was literally a sealed carriage, so the passengers couldn't move anywhere else on the train. No entries and exits were allowed into the carriage, not even food hawkers. About 100 Russians in Zurich actually showed up at the train station and mocked at Lenin and his followers as provocators, spies, pigs, traitors, because they had negotiated with the German enemy and were traveling under the Kaiser's sponsorship. Lenin knew that this trip could either end in death or in power, and he was clearly willing to risk it. Onto the journey itself, this was filled with interesting events. There was a chalk line in the carriage that separated the travelers from two German guards who accompanied them, and no party could cross the line. There were two toilets in the entire carriage, one on either end, which means that because the chalk line separated the guards and the passengers, the two guards got to use one side of the toilet, and between them and the other toilet was the only one that was available for all the other 30 plus travelers. Now just imagine the chaos. To add more complexity, this toilet seat was next literally to Lenin's compartment or Lenin's seat, and Lenin's tolerance was always on the negative. Our man Lenin had also banned smoking on the carriage except in the toilet. So there was always a long queue of people waiting to get in, creating a lot of chatter near Lenin, which caused him to be angry all the time. Now, those of you who sat on the last seat of a long-haul airplane can completely appreciate how excruciatingly painful this could be. Organizer that he was, Lenin started issuing numbered waiting tickets, P1 for those using the toilet for biological purposes and P2 for smoking, and at any time P1 trumped P2 and people had to wait in their seats until their turn came. Lenin also started his autocratic tendency right on the train. There was a strict rule to sleep or lie down silently after 7 p.m. He had rules on what songs to sing, rules on what to debate on, when to debate on, etc. I'm guessing this trip would look like possibly like a college tour where unfortunately you have this really strict, bespectacled headmaster joining you along with. The map with this podcast shows the path that Lenin took. The seal train ended at Baltic Sea. From there they used ferry to enter Sweden. From that point they took another train that crisscrossed all across Sweden till the border town of Haparanda. Here the team used sledges to cross the frozen river and enter Finland. This was a very suspenseful situation because Finland was part of Russian Empire in 1917, and there was a worry that Lenin and all his comrades may just be shot or arrested, branded as German spies when they make an entry. However, none of that happened, and they entered into Finland via Tornio. Finally, on the night of April 16th, 1917, after a total 8 days of journey, Lenin and his team got down at the Finland station at Petrograd. Petrograd was the capital city of Russia, founded by Peter the Great and used to be called as St. Petersburg earlier. Standing on top of an armored car, Lenin thundered, "The people need peace, the people need bread, the people need land. And the provincial government gives you war, hunger, and no bread. We must fight for the social revolution till the complete victory of the proletariat. Long live the worldwide socialist revolution." This historic short speech there prevented the Bolshevik party from breaking up due to their internal squabbles, and they all rallied together against the war effort and pretty much caused the revolution. Tailpiece, in 7 months, Lenin decimated Alexander Kerensky's government and started a very bloody civil war that will eventually kill millions and millions of civilians. This was called the October Revolution. Lenin, along with his comrades Leon Trotsky, Joseph Stalin, and others, went on to create USSR, an expensive communist experiment that eventually crumbled in the year 1990. Lenin's legacy today is very questionable. Recent research and communications that have unraveled from archives and vaults make it very clear that Lenin was indeed the root and origin of all the mess, and it was not just Stalin, as what Khrushchev had made the world believe. It's not entirely incorrect when the prominent Russian historian Alexander says that if they had arrested Lenin at the Finland station when he got down, or somewhere in his journey from Zurich to St. Petersburg, it would have saved everyone a lot of trouble. But after all, we know that it's only hindsight that is 2020. That's all for today, folks. Thanks for listening and journeying along with me in the interesting train trip that Lenin took from Zurich to Petrograd. I hope you enjoyed the story. Please send in your feedback and comments and requests to me on any of the platforms that you are hearing this or reading this from. Stay safe and talk to you soon.